All right, so I'll just work through this poem so you get a little bit of a sense of like what is he talking about, what's going on in here. So the soldier is standing and looking from the rice paddies out to the woods, the forest, across the paddies and woods. He says, in the stunned glare of midday. So remember that Vietnam is a tropical country, and it is enormously hot. If it's not monsoon season, basically, the temperature will probably hover around 120 degrees, and it's very humid, so it's going to feel like 140. They start moving in the early part of the day, which he talks about, but they're still moving in the middle of the day. Nobody in their right mind it actually would be out in the tropics in the midday sun, except a white person, basically, or people who are on a colonial mission. So there are these 6 green shades. So the green shades he's talking about are all the different greens that you can see, including the greens in this triple canopy jungle, which is famous for this. It has this incredible, there are actually 3 different canopies, 3 different layers of jungle foliage. So one layer, and then there's another layer on top of that, and there's another layer on top of that. So the jungle is incredibly dense, and there's this huge. I mean, it's a biome, right? It's its own ecosystem. Okay. And then, so they've been patrolling since first light. Humping is one of these terms that isn't here in any way sexual. It just means walking with the load that you're carrying, the pack that you're carrying. And so humping basically means that you're slogging through Vietnam, partly because Vietnam is, a great deal of it is mud, water. It's underwater, a lot of it, because it's the tropics. The paddies fields are flooded, it's muddy, so there's a lot of slogging through it. And as he says, they're humping towards the far foothills, as if they're going to somehow get to some greener pasture. Well, it's already green. And he's describing the poverty that he sees from their privations. This is really poverty of palm leaf huts, wood hoes. So here's the life of the farmer in rural Vietnam, which pretty much is the same at this point as it has been for really thousands of years, where life has gone on the same way, and there is no high technology in the fields. They're using handmade wooden tools. There are very few pieces of steel or iron, but really steel. And they use oxen to plow the fields and so on. Small pieces of china, so there would be a very few little cups. And eyes that shun our faceless faces. So because the men are white, the Vietnamese can't tell them apart. They're like, well, we all look the same. And of course, this is the same thing that white people often say about Asian peoples, is you all look the same. And so at the time, this is something where Bart is reflecting this back. He's like, no, actually, they're essentially, we have faceless faces because we've got these faces, but they don't make any difference. And then he goes on and observes there are no young men because, and when you go through the villages, or the ville as they are called, because the French call them that, there are no young men because they're all soldiers. So they've been picked up, and they've either been drafted essentially into the North Vietnamese army, or taken, or they've been killed, or they're already resistance fighters. That's it. So it's the mothers who remain, who are standing, as she says, survivors among all this wreckage. Are they trying to retain some hold? Or are they, like, what is the position of somebody who's been at war for potentially all their lives? Because you have people here, say, who might be 30, 40 women who were born, say, in, 1910, 1930, in the 20s or the 30s, and basically have either been fighting with the French or with the Americans all their lives. They have always been at war with an occupying force. And so are they patiently waiting out their desire? Their desire is for the white occupier to leave. It's just not that complex. White people have to leave. They're part of an occupying force. This is colonialism. and the Vietnamese want them out. So that's the desire, and also for peace, of course. People don't have, so your family doesn't have to be killed. But at this point, he says, "I don't know," and this is an incredible shift for an American to say, "I don't know, I don't understand, I don't know what I'm doing here." To stop believing in the cause, which is very important. And so he says, once arrogant, so, once he was arrogant, bringing aid, because the Americans would arrive and say, "Oh, we're going to, we'll fix up your health system here. You need inoculations, you won't get smallpox, you won't get typhoid, you won't get cholera, whatever." Bringing aid, the fire of napalm, so also destroying things, and lead, that is bullets. I become one of their witnesses. So he is ultimately a witness to history, which is the shift from being a soldier to being a witness, basically, to disaster. American disaster, but the beginnings of the new Vietnam as a nation, a unified Vietnam. So this he sees as being a seedbed. So it's basically a prepared ground where something will grow. So sluicing through the Earth's crust, it's such an agrarian image, of water, of rain, taking seeds into the ground, and then there will be a growth of something. This seedbed, like a dry pod shaken over a dead land. So you're trying to bring land back to life, and the people who are killing it are the Americans, basically. Like lust without a woman. It's like, wow. So this is very much the male concept of, when you take a land, that you are raping it. You will rape it. You will possess it. You will dominate it. All the language that men so often use about land is very often the language of rape. And he's on to that here, except that in this case, basically, the Americans have come up empty, so that they're lustful, but there's no mention of rape, and they will fail at this. So it's a bitter poem, but also hopeful in the sense that the Vietnamese are patient, and this will turn out to be one of their enormous strengths. So this is a place to start.